Welcome to Fine Line Station, where I read out letters and emails sent by you, the listeners. They are real-life stories about the uncanny, the creepy, and the unknown. I am your host, Charlie Fox, and I hope you're ready to tune in. Good afternoon, everyone, and happy February. Today we have an audio transcript sent in by Gabriel about the night he and his friends spent at the Quarry and how it coincided with his friend's mysterious disappearance. Interestingly enough, Rowan was the one to pick this story. I'm intrigued to find out more, and it seems like the mystery here is certainly a big one. So with that, let's take a wander through Gabriel's story. I think I'm being haunted. Okay, that's probably a bit dramatic, but I wanted to try saying it out loud. You know, when you try saying something and it helps you realize how ridiculous it sounds? While I may not be full-on haunted, I do think something is happening to me. To all of us that were at the Quarry that night. This all started with my friend Danica. Danica was the type of person who people wanted to be around. She was bright and bubbly with an extroverted personality that never went too far over the top to be annoying. Well, mostly, at least. The five of us all went to university together. We studied different things but often shared an area on campus to revise our classes. It sounds a bit cliche saying it, but it really did start as five outsiders who just happened to sit around a clutter of computers and desks together. I honestly doubt we would have become close friends without Danica. Myself and the other three were certainly more on the quiet side, especially Jay, who was the most introverted out of all of us. But that didn't stop Danica. Not much ever did. The girl who usually sat across from me, Sasha, was having troubles with her computer, and I happened to meet her panicked eyes. While I liked keeping to myself, I wasn't going to ignore a plea for help, especially on the old Windows desktops that took forever to load anything. Usually we would all use our own laptops, but not every class required them, and they were a pain to tote around all day, so we utilised the ancient beasts instead. After helping Sasha, the girl next to her made a joke we all huffed at, and she introduced herself as Danica. From then on, every Wednesday and Friday afternoon we would crowd around the same spot. Eventually she got Grayson talking. He was from a small town a few hours out and had a thick rural Australian accent. He spoke a little too loud and struggled to sit still for long periods of times, but he is one of the kindest guys I've ever met. The last to join our little group was Jay. They only came on the Wednesday and kept to themselves even more than I did. It took several weeks of Danica prodding and asking questions to them to finally open up to us all. Or at least open up in Jay's own way. I was reminded of when my sister was trying to befriend a stray cat that had started showing up at our door, offering small treats with her hand outstretched, or even leaving a small pile near her while she did something else, pretending that she didn't care if the cat approached. Either way, by the end of the year we were officially a group. I had had some friends in high school, of course, but I never really cared that much about the whole social aspects of it. It just seemed like too much effort most of the time. I'm sure if I never met Danica, I would have still continued on, maybe made a casual friend here and there, but she definitely added something to my life I hadn't experienced before. She was the glue that held us all together, and she was also the battery that kept us going. Aside from maybe Grayson, we all were quite happy going through the motions of our everyday life, but Danica insisted we could have much more fun. She was always planning various adventures for us to experience. I remember one time she had jokingly mentioned taking a road trip to see the pink salt lakes. Danica said a lot of stuff all the time. It sounds a bit rude, but I honestly zoned out sometimes. It was just too exhausting to keep up with everything she said. Anyway, a week later she showed up at my house with her car fully loaded for the trip and told me I had an hour to get ready. I was kinda pissed because I wanted to spend my term break rushing away at my computer, but she was like a giant wave. You couldn't escape, so you may as well ride with it. Sometimes stuff like that got annoying and I wouldn't be able to hold back a snappy comment. She was good though. She'd forgive me quickly and promised to check in before planning these elaborate ideas. She still did them, of course, but she was more mindful of our need for alone time. I often wonder what my life would have turned out like without her and the others. I regret thinking that now, and I wish I had enjoyed it more while it lasted. When Danica disappeared 5 months ago, everything changed. Obviously, it was horribly difficult for all of us. We'd all lost one of our best friends, but also our leader in a sense. I've only really shared the full story once for the police report, but I think I need to share it again for all our sakes. Danica was studying something. Okay, she did tell me how she was picking and choosing different subjects for a double degree, but they were so varied I actually had no idea what her end goal was. This term she was loving specifically her astronomy and her philosophy class. I know, what a mix. She'd taken some kind of physics class last semester and that seemed to influence her philosophical drive. Now, I have done very brief computer science stuff in one of my courses, but that's pretty much it. I'm probably going to butcher whatever the heck she was talking about, so excuse that. It started with her talking about the Heisenberg uncertainty principle. Yeah, I pulled a face too. Basically, it means that you cannot know the exact position and exact speed of a particle at the same time. It is either one or the other. She used the example of a roller coaster going up and down. The cart would reach the top of the crest and we could take a pic of its location but not know its speed, but then record its speed as it was shooting down but not be able to pinpoint its location. Danica loved when it was hard to record information. She loved theorizing how you could think outside the box and come up with potential solutions. She was certainly a smart person, don't get me wrong, but she really didn't have enough theoretical knowledge behind any of this to actually come up with anything useful. It was more a fun puzzle for her to pull apart. I think that's why she ended up loving philosophy so much. She didn't need a whole lot of background information. Being able to think through concepts seemed to be enough. She would spend hours telling us about the different things she'd learnt. We actually did get into a few debates over different topics. It was fun seeing the usually quiet Jay get into a word fist fight with Danica. It was about halfway through the term that she told us about a strange classmate she had met. I never met the guy, but apparently he was in both her astronomy and philosophy class and was like 5 or so years older than her. He had a similar yearning for pulling apart ideas and was the first one to tell her about the observer effect. I had heard of this one before. Basically, observing something changes how it acts. I think it's used in like quantum mechanics or something, but it had popped up in one of my computer science courses. For whatever reason, this theory blew Danica's mind. She got really into testing it out. One time she asked Sasha a bunch of random personal questions, then did it again with a camera shoved in her face. Sasha, of course, was embarrassed and stumbled her words the second time. Danica reckoned this counted as an example because observing, in this case recording, changed how Sasha acted. She did a bunch more stuff like this, but again it just was part of whatever phase Danica was in and I tuned a lot of it out. That is until she declared one evening that she wanted to go to the local quarry to record the stars. The quarry was an abandoned mining field a few hours out of town. It had been shut down and the dangerous sections had been roped off, but there was a large crater-esque area you could hang out in. It wasn't illegal to hop down there, but they did heavily encourage people not to due to the potential dangers of slipping and falling, but it didn't stop young adults from going. I'm sure you can guess what went on there, all sorts of sketchy behaviour, but it was also mixed in with a few nerdy types. Because it was kinda in the middle of nowhere, the stars were much easier to see without the light pollution, so a lot of people packed up telescopes and headed down, including Danica and another one of her crazy ideas. She rounded up the 5 of us on a cool evening and drove us out to the quarry. It was a more popular place during the warmer months, so there was only one other group when we arrived. Danica set up the telescope and computer and a few other bits and pieces. Until this day, I don't fully understand what she was trying to find. When we asked her, she said we were to trick the stars that we weren't looking. I know, that's kind of a crazy comment, but we were all so immune to her Danica-ness that we shrugged and set up the picnic rug and snacks. It was actually quite cool. I'd never seen the stars so bright, and it's nice being rugged up in cold weather with a thermos of hot coffee. The first thing Danica made us do was record what we saw in the sky. Things like a rough count of how many stars in our vision, colours, textures, anything else. We played along without any question. Next, she set up her phone, turned us all away, and then recorded the stars. We looked back over the footage. Nothing unusual, of course. She looked frustrated at this, and I finally prodded her for more information. She confessed that her strange friend had been talking to her about the observer's effect, and suggested trying it on the night sky. She may just be surprised what she'll find, if she was able to think outside the box. I couldn't hold back the laugh. It sounded kind of ridiculous and like a conspiracy theory. Danica glared at me, but I promised I would at least try and help her find life of aliens or whatever else she was hoping to find. We continued a few different experiments, but nothing turned out different. It wasn't until Sasha suggested we try making a pinhole camera for the fun of it. Sash was taking a film course as one of her electives and still had some dark paper, and we reckoned we could put together a makeshift camera. We had to be creative with some of the supplies, but we did manage to put a shoddy one together. We had a few failed ones as we accidentally exposed the paper when we weren't ready, but eventually we managed to get a few good ones. The longer exposure meant the stars had moved slightly, so they created these really cool trails across the page. The image was a bit jumbled though and was probably too artsy for me to fully appreciate, but I thought it was cool nonetheless. We did a few more, and while Danica seemed pleased at the new process, she didn't seem to find what she was looking for. Around midnight, we wrapped up for the night and headed home. The next bit is tough. I didn't actually find out a lot of this until after she disappeared and was able to go through some of her notes, so while I'm sharing this now, I didn't know at the time. Danica continued to visit the quarry without us. I still don't know why she didn't tell us. Maybe she was embarrassed by her obsession with recording the night sky? I'm not sure. She had tried some more recordings with her phone, and then even taken some photos from a film camera she had borrowed from the university. At one point, she had even taken some of the developing liquids with her to develop the photo right at the quarry. We know this because she had a journal she roughly took notes in. One evening said it was too cold, which is why it didn't work. Another said it was the wrong day for it to happen. She also mentions a he several times. I assume now she is referring to her classmate that first introduced her to this idea. Weeks passed and she told us none of this. We also didn't realise how many classes she had skipped. Not many of us shared them this term. She was acting more reserved and quiet than usual and was sometimes exhausted as she met up with us. I am ashamed to say that I just let her be. She had a tough relationship with her mum, and I just assumed she'd gotten into a massive fight or something. I assumed she would be back to her normal self soon enough, and she would reach out to us if she needed anything. I wish I had asked. I wish I didn't just shrug my shoulders when Sasha shot me a concerned look. I first knew something was horribly wrong when Danica's mum called me on Monday morning. She was asking if I knew where Danica had gone. She'd left Friday night to hang out with us, but hadn't come home since. I hadn't seen her since our study session the Wednesday before. Things escalated from there and the police were called in. I won't go into any detail. I'm sure you can imagine how awful it was waiting to see if the police could find her, anxiously calling her phone non-stop and messaging every one of her socials, sharing where we had last seen her and anywhere she could have gone, if she'd had any partners. We were her closest friends, but we had no idea. Jay quietly mentioned the guy she'd been chatting with in her classes, but we never got his name from Danica, so that led to nothing. Eventually we mentioned going to the quarry once before, and that's when they found her stuff. Apparently she had driven down there Friday and set up a bunch of equipment. This is when they found her logbooks and a bunch of other notes and scribbles. There were, no signs of struggle or whatever, but it had been a terribly windy day. They found part of her telescope in one of the restricted areas, so she may have tried to go through the fenced parts and unfortunately fell. They didn't find her body, and still haven't. It really messed us all up. Jay withdrew from uni and barely leaves their house, let alone text me back. Grayson went back to his hometown, but still tries to check in once a week. Sasha and I took 2 months off from uni, but have resumed part-time for now. We still go to the crappy desktop computers, even though we don't talk much anymore. The worst part is not knowing what happened. Obviously, the police put together an educated guess, but it just feels like we don't have enough of the story. Oh, I should probably share why I think I'm being haunted now. Ever heard of the Baader-Meinhof phenomenon? It's like when you see something frequently, when you've recently heard or learnt about it. I remember wanting a border collie pup when I was younger, and as soon as I told my parents, I started seeing them everywhere I went. I told them it was a sign, that it was meant to be. It's just really your bias, of course. We see so many things every day that we can't fully process it all, but once we're aware, we see those patterns even if nothing has changed except that we are more aware now. So yes, I thought it was purely Baader-Meinhof, and that's why I kept seeing all this crap that reminded me of Danica. I get pop-ups on my computer for astronomy tools. I randomly get a spam email from the address Danica loves. Every time I passed the grocery store, I saw lilies in the center display, her favorite flower. I checked out a textbook that had the word Danica doodled on the inner page. Once, while riding the train, the person next to me forgot their philosophy book, the same one Danica had showed us. I swear I would keep catching her specific perfume on the wind as well. I would even keep finding myself following someone with blonde hair who looked enough like Danica until they turned around. It was like I couldn't stop myself from seeing her everywhere. I know it's probably trauma or grief or whatever, but I swear there is a part of me that knows it is unnatural how often she pops up. I finally broke down and told Sasha about this, worried she'd think I was insane. Instead, I saw the horror in her eyes. She'd been going through exactly the same thing. And now, I don't know what to do. I've tried to ignore it all and move on with my life, but it's hard. Maybe sharing my story will help. Maybe not. Either way, I figure you'd appreciate such a strange tale. Thanks for listening, I guess. Oh, I should share one other thing as well. I didn't realise this until I was going back over her notes when recording this for you, but one other odd item had been found at the quarry that night she disappeared. It was a two-way mirror, where on one side it was your reflection and then the other you could see through. Maybe she had found a way to observe the stars without them noticing in the end. And that brings us to the end of today's story. I am sorry for your loss, Gabriel. It's never easy losing anyone, but I'm sure it's even more frustrating when you don't have all the answers. I hope Danica was able to find what she so desperately searched for in the end. It's interesting how both you and Sasha seem to be experiencing the same thing. I agree, it could be trauma, and I hope you have the resources available to help both of you. But I can see what you mean about it seeming too coincidental, too obvious to be something random and brushed aside. Anyway, this has been another broadcast by Fine Line Station. I'm Charlie Fox, and I'll speak to you next time.